This program is brought to you by the Georgia Neurosurgical Institute. For over 50 years, rendering neurosurgical care to patients of all social conditions, treating complicated problems involving the brain, spine, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves, endeavoring to encourage quality care, medical research, innovation, and education on a local, national, and international basis.
Well, good evening. My name is Joe Sam Robinson. It's our pleasure to have with us tonight Mr. Jim Pace. Welcome, Jim. Welcome to have you here.
Very good to be here, Joe.
Now, you have a lot of things in your world, and besides many adventures in life, one thing you're doing now is you're running for Congress. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Now, is this the first time you've swung the bat? Have you ever done anything like this before?
Actually, I'm undefeated in my political career. I ran in 1996 as a Peachtree City Councilman.
Yeah.
And no one ran against me, so I thought this politics, this is quite easy.
Oh, well, really? So you stayed there for a while, or how long?
I was a congressman or a city councilman for 4 years.
Oh, good.
This is my first national race.
Well, good for you. And so what provoked you to throw your hat in the ring? Any particular reason?
You know, it's really a sense of calling.
Yes.
You know, Americans are angry with the way things are going. Congress has an approval rating of 12%.
Yes.
And I'm one of them. And so
Yes.
I felt like if we're going to complain about things, we need to get involved and do something.
Sure.
So I have a history of being a person of action, a person that accomplishes things, and I'm a fixer.
Well, good.
You know, I like fixing things, and so this is an opportunity, I believe, for me to go and take a swing at the plate. I believe that I've been a businessman for 44 years, sales and marketing,
Yes.
construction. I understand how to listen to points of view and hopefully help to get people to come to the right decision.
Yes.
So I believe that, you know, we need a little shaking up. We need someone that has a popcorn machine of ideas, so to speak.
Yes.
You know, the same old isn't working, is it?
No, it's not. And so it's a complicated world out there. And so you've had some business experience. And let's see, am I right on this? You had something to do with Hollywood. I mean, is there something you did in regards to?
Yes, my movie career began actually.
Were you an actor?
No,
or
no, I'm a developer. I'm a business developer. I create jobs and build buildings and help people
right.
have places to work.
Yes.
We were involved with a television series called Drop Dead Diva for 6 years, and in the project I didn't particularly.
Oh boy, so that's interesting.
But we helped them with facilities and with places to shoot and so forth. And as we did, we realized that we had other land next to the sound stages where they were in, and so we were going to expand that. And we bumped.
This was outside Atlanta, is that right?
That's right, Peachtree City.
Yes.
Peachtree City. And so we bumped into a group out of London that was looking for a U.S. hub.
Yes.
And we didn't know that they were the largest purveyor of sound stages in the world. We didn't know that they'd done all these major motion pictures, and we just thought they were a bunch of nice guys, and so we showed them what we had, and at the end of the day they said, well, we really like you guys, we really like Atlanta, but we'll never go near an airport.
Yes.
And so fortunately one of the young men at the table said, no problem, we have another site we'd like to show you.
Yes.
And we showed them that site, and they liked it very much.
Why didn't they like airports? Is the sound?
Too much noise.
Too much noise, yes.
Yeah, the sound stages do a great job of knocking off the noise inside the building, but there are scenes that have to be filmed outside. And
so this turned out to be a big deal. Am I right on that?
I mean,
what sprung out of this? What exactly has happened with that?
It's a big deal. It's the governor appointed me to his commission on entertainment and so forth, and I've learned there that we invested approximately $335 million worth of tax credits for the film industry, and we got a $6 billion return on that money.
Really?
So in a very real sense, it has been a great investment for the state. $6 billion is an amazing addition to our state gross domestic product. And that's what we need to do in Washington. We need to create jobs and stimulate the economy.
Right. Now, I think there's teaching going on, too, is there not, in this arrangement? I mean,
there
are
people
learning about this kind of thing,
absolutely.
Jobs being created?
Absolutely. As part of the process, we realized that we needed to train people to come into the industry, and we didn't really have that. And so when you looked around the country, you had The New York Film Academy certainly has a prominent role. You had Southern California, Southern California, not Southern California,
right.
had USC. They had a prominent role, but we didn't have anything really here in Georgia.
Yes.
And so we were being bombarded
right.
with different colleges and universities. And in a meeting with Governor Deal, I said, you know, what we really need to do is get the Board of Regents involved and create a Georgia Film Academy that can compete worldwide with the finest and best in the world.
Yes.
Not, I've kind of gone beyond the best in Georgia, the best in the U.S. We're competing in a world economy. Let's be the best in the world.
Yes.
And we've done that.
And so, tell me just where things are right now. Do you have? It's a huge, I guess, site with lots of movie events taking place and students coming in. And
it's quite an exciting place to be. Captain America was just filmed there. It's in the theaters now, on its way to being probably $1 billion grossing movie. The part that I've played in it is essentially not so much operations. I have nothing to do with that.
Were you one of the superheroes in that, or?
I've been in the movie Ant-Man, but you would have to take my word for it. By the time they closed the Venetian blinds, you saw a shadow passing.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, you can get a little publicity that way, I guess. But you actually rather seriously it played a part in a big thing. And so, how many people are employed there? And you mentioned $6 billion.
The $6 billion is not just from that soundstage. That's the impact of the entertainment industry in the state of Georgia.
Yes.
We were just named the #1 state to live and work in the entertainment industry. That's
that right?
That's quite an honor.
Now, I hope Macon gets some publicity from that.
Well, I hope that, what does it say? A rising tide floats all boats.
Maybe so. Maybe Macon will get some help.
I was in Barnesville, Georgia, which is not too far from here.
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yes.
And in Aiken Feed and Seed.
Right. Yeah.
And the young man came up to me and said, "Hey, aren't you the guy that helped to bring that industry here to Fayette County?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "My wife is working there. It's the best job she's ever had." Wow. So I'm really pleased that we could do something to help people in Georgia. And it's in the multiple thousands of jobs, and they're good paying jobs.
Yes.
They kind of go up and down the way that these things work. The guys that come in and build the sets, a lot of them. The actors come in for briefer periods of time.
Right.
The makeup and so on and so forth, casting companies. There's just all kind of ancillary businesses. We've even got an on-lot Home Depot store.
Wow.
They call it the studio store.
Yes. So. Now, the film credits played a role in this, and there's been some discussion about that. Do you have an opinion about that? I
have a very firm opinion about it. We compete globally.
Yes.
We compete globally in many, many areas. Growing up, most of the things that I would get for Christmas said made in the USA. They don't say that anymore.
Yes.
Today they're made in China.
Yes.
Automobiles are assembled in Mexico.
Yes.
The digital stuff is largely in India and other places. And so we have to level the playing field. There's no good thing to come if we can't compete as a country.
Yes.
And we have to learn that. And so the United Kingdom has film credits, Canada has film credits, Dominican Republic has film credits, Australia has film credits.
Yes.
If we're going to attract, the movie guys, we have to have it. And so, I say that without those, they would be gone in 60 seconds, and I think that's pretty accurate. They're not going to come if they can just go where they used to go to places like Toronto and film their movies there. They'll go there. So it's an ability to level the field to where our people have a shot at those jobs instead of some other location around the world.
Now, what about your journey through life, Jim? I think you had mentioned that your mother had a relation with Tinsley Harrison, and that sort of maybe you could say who that was and how you have, I guess, gone through your life. And you mentioned you've been married for 44 years. And how have things gone for you as you've?
I've had a fascinating life. I've met fascinating people, and Dr. Harrison was one of them.
Yes.
My mother was his personal assistant in the latter years of his life, and I got to know him very well. He had a home at Lake Martin, Alabama, and my wife and I would go and spend weekends over there with Dr. Harrison. He's a brilliant man.
Yes.
He gave me one of his Harrison's principles of internal medicine.
Yeah, but I'll just intercede here and say for the audience that as Dr. Harrison is this giant figure in American medicine that was in Birmingham and made that medical school what it is today, and medical center what it is. And he's really a very productive, great person. And it's a good that's a good connection. I'll just offer that comment.
Yeah, he's very fond memories of him. We still have a home on Lake Martin in Alabama, and we enjoy going there. But that season of my life was really a great one. My wife and I met in high school.
Yes.
I told you that she was the first girl I ever spent the night with, and I spent the night with her on the day that I was born.
Oh, is that right?
In Vicksburg, Mississippi, in the hospital, the day that I was born, I was brought into the infant nursery and laid down next to young Mary Wilson.
That's a rather interesting story, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty. Did you discover that later, or you kept up with each other?
Well, we discovered it later, much later. In fact, that we both were born and raised there
in Vicksburg.
In Vicksburg. And my grandfather started the first radio station in the state of Mississippi.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
And invented the first radio. So we've always had a family of entrepreneurs.
That's pretty interesting. Yes.
And so Mary and I did learn that yes, in fact, we were in the nursery at the same time, and she was there first. She's old. I married an older woman.
Older woman. Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
So she was there first, and so I got to join her on the day that I was born. And we reconnected at 16 years old. I will tell you that.
Did you mention to her you had a relationship with her earlier, or that just came out
later? No, that came out. In fact, I think it's a really cute story, and it helps people to kind of know that God moves in interesting ways sometimes. But He joined us together at that moment, I believe, and we're here 48 years later.
Well, there you go. That's a good story there.
We're still here.
Happily married. Yes.
So we've got 3 children and 8 grandchildren, with 2 more on the way.
Well, good for you. That's a great honor or privilege, isn't it? To have some grandchildren, and just a wonderful joy.
They are, but it's also an obligation.
Yes.
It also provides us with, an obligation to try to turn the country over to them the same way we got it. My dad was part of the greatest generation, they called themselves. That started after the war, and I'll say that part of my decision to run for Congress is probably a lot like his decision to get on that big green Army bus after Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Did he join up?
He did. He was an 18-year-old young man.
In Vicksburg?
In Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Wow, and he was outraged.
And he and his brother both, joined up.
Yes.
So he served in the Air Force in World War II and the Korean conflict.
Yes. Wow.
And, that's my turn.
Yes.
It's my turn to serve.
Yes.
So this is a servant leadership position for me.
Yes.
This is not something that I don't need the title.
Yes.
I don't need the commute for sure.
Right.
But I'd sure like to be able to look my grandchildren in the eye and say I did what I could.
Yes. Well, maybe that's the secret of, I guess, being a leader, is you have to be a servant. Really, the idea is you have to basically sacrifice yourself and be aware of the needs of other people. And that's quite a high calling. Well, so you grew up in Vicksburg, and did you started a business, or you got into a business, or how did that?
No, my early career was with large companies like Westinghouse, which got purchased. The lighting division that I was in got purchased by Kraus Heinz out of Syracuse, New York.
Yes.
And this all occurred in the 80s.
Okay.
The 80s was the decade of mergers and acquisitions, and I was front and center in that arena. So by the time I was 30, I had managed to get to be a vice president of sales and marketing.
Yes.
Even though I have a degree in accounting.
Okay, well that's not altogether dissimilar, is it?
I have a degree that actually taught me how to manage money.
You look at those numbers and
but I have to tell you, a non-practicing accountant is probably a lot like a non-practicing neurosurgeon.
Okay, right. You have to keep your hand in it. Right?
Yeah, you do.
Keep your hand in it, yes.
But the corporate career lasted until 1989. I actually moved to Peachtree City, Georgia in 1987 with Cooper, with the lighting company that I'd worked for in Vicksburg. And that was after we actually acquired a company, McGraw Edison, with headquarters located in Chicago.
Yes.
And so when you have a president and a series of vice presidents, you don't need both of them.
Right. Yes.
This is a lesson that the government could learn and try to get rid of a little of the additional manpower that you don't need, but they don't seem to quite have that concept.
Right.
So I came to Atlanta in 1987 with a commitment to them that I would work for 2 years.
Yes.
Since they paid my moving expense and so forth, and so I did. I worked for 2 years and decided that I'd had enough of mergers and acquisitions, and so I started my own company. Well, I felt like I would have a little better chance at setting the parameters, that we treat people fairly, those kinds of things. So we did that in 1989. 3 times in the early 90s we were recognized as one of the fastest growing privately held companies in Atlanta.
Now, what exactly was your company?
We had a construction development real estate company. So
yes.
it was a service company in the construction development business, and we
yes.
built a great many medical buildings. We probably built more medical buildings in Atlanta than just about anybody.
Okay, wow, good for you.
We built.
Some of my colleagues might be in a few of them.
We built, it could be, we built buildings for Piedmont and Wellstar and
right, yes.
Others, and we built the studios.
Right, yes.
So the studio.
So that's quite, now you say you had to interface with a lot of people, did you not? And so in that role you had to know something about money, shekels, management of people, how to be fair to people, and there's probably a fair amount of, I guess, architectural knowledge there, and zoning. You had to interface with government.
All the above, but first and foremost, leadership.
Yes.
You have to be able to know what you don't know, and you
yes.
have to employ the people that have that knowledge,
yes.
and not try to do it all yourself.
Yes,
and so
right.
I didn't know, how to build 77-foot tall buildings
yes,
with
right.
12-inch thick concrete walls and
yes,
pick the
yes,
panels
right,
up and
right,
so forth.
Right.
But I knew people who did.
Yes.
And so if you can get people working together,
yes.
you can accomplish a great many things. If you can't get people
right,
working
yes.
together,
yes.
Everything kind of stagnates, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I mean, just the knowledge of human behavior is pretty key. I mean, that's one thing that's interesting in the country, the idea of entrepreneurship. And so people just do that, and they take chances. Obviously, it's quite a rolling the dice. I mean, it's no small thing to start your own company. Is that correct? It's anxiety occurs. They have to take some real guts to do that.
If you're a fearful person, don't do it.
Yeah,
because
you've got to have a lot of self-confidence.
You do, and it's more than that. I think you have to have self-confidence, but you have to also have have that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
There's apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, evangelists in the Bible. Well,
yes.
in business we have entrepreneurs and lawyers
right.
and
accounting
guys and
all the animals of the jungle are there.
Yeah,
is that right?
The evangelists would be the sales guys,
right,
and
right.
so we have to acknowledge that the skill set that you're given is the one that you're stuck with.
Yes, right.
And yeah, you can learn new things, but ultimately, wisdom is either there or it isn't, and leadership is either there or it isn't. And I've seen, so many examples. I had a meeting this morning with the veterans. I'm a big supporter of the veterans.
Yes.
And there were 5 general officers, 2 major generals,
right.
in the breakfast meeting with me
yes.
this morning, all retired.
Yes.
And they're great examples of leaders, and
yes.
they got to be general officers by being those people who could lead.
Right.
We've had great leaders in our country's history, and yet we seem to be languishing a bit right now. We're not moving forward. We're not
yes.
doing the kind of things that that we used to do when John Kennedy said, "We will put a man
yes.
on the moon."
Right.
It mobilized a nation.
Yes.
And we accomplished that task. I've got a dear friend named Carl Turner who actually was involved in that Apollo program.
Oh, really?
He wrote the computer code that landed the lunar lander on the moon.
Right.
Nobody's figured out how he's done it.
Wow, that's quite yes.
Fascinating.
Well, now, as you look at the future and whatever, I mean, do you have any thoughts? I mean, the country right now seems to be, it's quite a year, 2016. They have these tremendous tension in the country, and really the national candidates are fairly extreme, one could say that. I mean, they're not the centralist kind of people that are, you might imagine, earlier might have appeared.
Right.
It's a pretty extreme situation. I mean, what are your thoughts about this? Which way, what does the country really need? I mean, you're investing a huge amount of your time and efforts and energy, and you want to make things work. So what do you think are some good ideas for the country?
I have put my life on hold.
Yes.
Okay, I have devoted the last 3.5 months
yes.
to this campaign.
Yes.
And if I didn't feel that we could go and make a difference, I wouldn't waste my time.
Yes.
The situation essentially is that we've become complacent with whatever happens up there. We just say, well, that's Washington.
Yes.
Well, that's not Washington.
Yes, yes.
We have this unusual document that that was drafted by some really brilliant people
yes.
called the Constitution.
Yes.
We have seemingly set it aside. And
yes.
I say that because there's so much government overreach right now
yes.
that's not permitted in the Constitution.
Yes.
It's actually a violation of the 10th Amendment.
Yes.
Not
yes.
many people really understand what that says, but it's pretty simple. It essentially says the powers that are not specifically given to the federal
yes.
government are reserved to the states and the people.
Yes.
And so these overreaches that are coming out, we've just had one recently now we've got the President of the United States involving himself in the bathroom debate. It's appalling.
That's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, if you think about all the problems the world has and all the complications of life, it's really a rather, it's a rather de minimis issue. I have to say that. I mean, maybe if there are not many people that really are transsexual, and I think there are ways to be accommodative without making things so
I couldn't
awkward.
agree more. As best I know, when a person's born, they're either two X's, which makes them a female, or an X and a Y, and they get to be a male.
Yes.
I haven't seen any others. And so for me, I grew up with that as a given, and we've managed to make it through 64 years of life, and we've never had this debate.
Yes.
Why are we having it now?
Well, it's rather, you could say, I hate to use this word, slightly amusing. I mean, really, if you think about it, if everyone's ancestors if your father could appear from Vicksburg, back, where I'm sure he rests in peace, but mine rest in peace here. But certainly the last generation, if they could appear, and they would listen to this discussion, it would be unbelievable. It's really, and just to make a small comment about it, and the whole notion of changing one's gender is a very complicated, difficult one to do. And from the research that's out there, it's pretty equivocal. The benefit that people may or may not receive. It's a pretty exceptional, difficult thing to do, and there's a big argument about how appropriate it is. I would just throw that out there. How appropriate it is, and there can be situations where it could be considered as appropriate, but it's certainly not a routine event. It's really quite a devastating destruction of your body, really.
Sure,
so it's not a small issue there.
I've never gotten very far into that issue, and I'm much more concerned about balancing a $19 trillion deficit and a nuclear Iran, and creating jobs. We've got an issue here that most people really do not fully understand. And if we were to talk about macroeconomics for a minute, which is one of my fascinations.
Oh, good. We could do that.
I can tell you that it takes 2.1 people per couple to maintain equilibrium.
Yes.
China learned a valuable lesson when they went to the one-child policy. They're really suffering from that now. But the pyramid needs to look like this. It needs to have a broad foundation. Okay, lots of young people supporting a few old people.
Sure.
Okay, right now, America's in trouble. The 60 million or so children that we have eliminated from the possibility of being in the workforce through abortion have caused our pyramid to not look like a pyramid.
Yes.
We're inverted. We have a pyramid that's essentially inverted. And so we've got more and more weight from more and more of us older people as we're living longer. We're living longer. We've got better, life expectancies, and we don't have enough children to pay the debt that will be there when we get to the point of needing our Social Security. And I'm 64. I think I told you that. So I'm getting closer.
Well, you're just a pup, if I can say that.
Okay. Well, pup as it may. I'm definitely 44 years, down the trail as my business career, and I'm concerned about this. And so, in spite of the fact that that a lot of people don't agree with me on this issue, that issue has an economic consequence as well, I believe, as a moral consequence.
Yes. And so, is that? You could make the case, at least some economists do, that some of the possibilities of recession or depression, or the idea of what's happening with the very sluggish recovery after the 2008 problems, is that the population dynamics are out of kilter. And so you have there are not so many new households being formed, and those that are being formed, a lot depends on immigration. So, which is somewhat of a destabilizing event, and it would be better if we could do it, I guess, in a more even-handed fashion. But really, a lot of what's going on in the world is that the population increase in the undeveloped world is still extraordinary. These developed countries are having issues, Japan, Germany, us, and how we deal with that's quite complicated. And you brought up, if I can throw you a pitch here, you brought up the issue of our national debt. That's a pretty scary thing. What do you think about that? What are we going to do about those 19 trillion? Is that the number? Whatever.
Well, it's growing every day. It's probably 19.5 by now. It's growing pretty rapidly. And I learned early on in life that in business, you have to put money into the cigar box before you can take money out, or into the cash register if you prefer.
Right. Yes.
And we're putting our future generations at risk with the reckless treatment of this federal deficit.
Yes.
And we have a growing deficit. The things that have to happen in order for that to correct itself is we obviously need to control spending, but controlling spending is more and more difficult because most of the budget now is already non-negotiable.
Yes.
It's you can't touch it. It's Medicaid, it's
right.
Social Security, interest on the debt. By the time you back that out, you've got somewhere between $500 billion, and we won't get too far off it, but there's not enough money if you cut it all out to really fix it. The only way to fix it is through growing the economy, and so that's kind of my subspecialty, if it was. Some people are neurosurgeons, and I'm an economic developer.
Well, okay, so all right, you have a lot of, let's say, obligation and responsibility in Washington. What do you want to do to throw some gasoline on the fire here? How can we make things take off a little bit with growing things?
It's kind of back to the future. We need to go back and take a page out of Reagan's playbook. It worked then, it will work now. If we create a favorable business climate, we can bring those jobs back. We can have things that once again say "Made in America."
Yes.
We can have the jobs that are created here, like we've done. I can tell you that there are many people in my race. The only one that I can see that's actually brought jobs of any magnitude. I mean, yes, certain of them have started small companies, but in the thousands of jobs, $6 billion against a state budget of $24 billion. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot.
It's very significant.
Right.
And so a 4% GDP would buy that deficit down. We're nowhere close.
Right.
We're nowhere close, and we seem like we're more concerned about these unrelated government overreach kind of issues. I have an idea for you. Let's abolish the Department of Education.
Yes.
The government cannot create jobs. The government can only spend money.
Yes, right.
Literally, there's only two people in society, or two groups of people, I should say, in society that can take your money. One of them is a thief, and the other one's the government.
There you go, right?
And so let's take less from you and let you keep more and stimulate the economy. We need to get the small businesses going again, but we need to keep the large businesses here.
Yes.
Pfizer almost went to Ireland. We need Pfizer to stay here. We need to create incentives, not incentives, but take away the disincentives and keep our businesses here in America.
All right, we're almost out of time, but how about a quick comment on the tax arrangements? So we have these companies that are stuck overseas because they can't repatriate their money. We have a lot of debate about that. What's fair, what's not fair.
Right.
I mean, what can we do to do anything? It's a real complicated story.
It's a complicated story.
You've got like 45 seconds to
Well, I'll just tell you in 45 seconds, I'm a fair tax guy. I believe that we have mechanisms in place that we can tax the things that you buy fairly so that everybody pays their fair share, and we can virtually get rid of the IRS.
Yes.
Get rid of that agency. Hire more Border Patrol.
Yes. Well, okay. So that's a quick little jaunt into that subject. All right. Now, actually, we have another 30 seconds. What about foreign affairs, the military, the Middle East? Okay, you got 30 seconds.
I can't do that one 30 seconds. I told you I met with a bunch of general officers today. We've got a military that's at its lowest troop strength in 40 years.
Yes. The
equipment's aging. The equipment is in need of replacing, and we need to do that. We cannot cut our federal defense spending any further. We need to get that rebuilt, and so that would be I'd be a strong proponent of that, rebuilding the military.
Okay. Well, all right. We still have a little more time. I'm going to throw you some questions. All right. How about Iran? Any comments about that? What are your comments about that?
We needed a better negotiator at the table. A nuclear Iran is not in anybody's best interest.
Okay, well, we've had 3 quick questions. It's been great meeting you tonight, Jim. I wish you luck in your efforts, and it's just great that you're taking this step. Good for you. That's the American way, so good for you.
Thank you. Good being with you.
Good, thank you.
This program is brought to you by the Georgia Neurosurgical Institute. For over 50 years, rendering neurosurgical care to patients of all social conditions, treating complicated problems involving the brain, spine, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. endeavoring to encourage quality care, medical research, innovation, and education on a local, national, and international basis.